Hello, everyone. I am Carolyn Choate, and I am joined today by Ricky Kesler of Income School on YouTube. And I am so thrilled to be able to bring him on because when I thought, oh, I don't know what's happening with SEO and blogging in 2025 with all this AI stuff, I know the person who's going to have answers for me. So would you like to introduce yourself, Ricky?
Sure, and hopefully I have some good answers for you. We'll do our best.
Depending on your-
So I'm Ricky Kesler. I've been in the content creation, blogging, SEO, as well as YouTube space for about 10 years now. And I started Income School about 10 years ago and with a friend, one of my best friends and business partner, Jim Harmer. And then a few years ago, we split and now it's just me running the show. I've got a team here of just awesome people and we're busy creating content and focused on SEO.
Let me just say that I have been following Income School on YouTube for quite a long time. I can't say exactly how long, but probably 4 years, 5 years, something like that. And I've always appreciated the really unique take that you have on blogging. It's not just rehashing the stuff that you hear everywhere, it's that unique research. And that was one of the things that stood out to me a lot in the episodes about backlinks. Was the best way to get backlinks is to do your own research, because then everybody else who's lazy is going to link to your article because it has the research.
That's right. And it has worked really well.
So you have these amazing insights, you have the research, you're able to see what works with a lot of different bloggers, because it's not just you and not just you and Jim, it's all the people who are with you in Income School, the people that you train and help. So I know that you have that background to see, and you've seen people kind of rise up through, here's where to start with blogging and do these types of articles to grow and to bring in traffic. I know that your advice has been working fantastic for me and for many others for years now, but it kind of feels like all of a sudden there's some big shifts in the blogging world. Now, when I started with blogging, it was like 2010. And at that time, people would follow your blog. They would read everything that you wrote. And it's not really that way anymore. Now it's more like articles, and people see an individual blog post and they don't necessarily follow the whole blog. But now it feels like there's an even bigger change with Google search being really taken over by AI and ads. And I just wanted to get first your kind of big overview idea of what's happening there.
High level, it has changed so much. A lot of the time that I've been in blogging, I started a few years after you did, but a lot of the time that I've been in the blogging space, people had already started moving away from reading every blog post and really following a blogger. Some people were still doing it, but for the most part, it was really a game of SEO, right? Creating content that was catered to things that people were typing into their search bar. And in thinking about it that way, just like, what is the thing? What's the question that somebody has? And if they ask this question, what is it that they need to know? And then just creating content around that worked really well. But it was really focused on, I'm going to write an article that's going to win for this search, and I'll get a bunch of traffic. And then over the last year, really it started a little bit before that. When ChatGPT, AI was around, people were using AI to write content, but not that much, right? And it wasn't very good. And people weren't using AI to find information, right? But then ChatGPT came out. And for quite a while, people were really skeptical. I was really skeptical. But around that time, anytime that there's a tool that's going to make something easier, people are going to take advantage of it. And a lot of people started just creating massive amounts of content for the internet. And they weren't even really, especially in the beginning, a lot of people, they just weren't even fact checking it. They were just like, write me an article. A lot of them weren't very good. They weren't accurate. It was pretty crummy. And Google was already making steps toward trying to steer traffic toward reputable websites, sites that were likely to have accurate information. Well, they put out an update a little over a year and a half ago that knocked out a bunch of websites. It just decimated traffic for a lot of people. It was one of their, quote, helpful content updates. It was, instead of focusing on optimizing for SEO, which people could do with AI, they could just put it right there into their prompt, use this word, format it in this way, and they could optimize it for SEO, but still not have it be helpful. And so Google really pushed back on that. And then they put out another update just over a year ago that kind of just put the nail in the coffin for a lot of bloggers, especially if you hadn't already established yourself. And that's kind of the big thing that we see today is people who are successful with blog content, they've established themselves. So they have a reputation that Google can see to some extent and measure through their algorithms. It's not just about creating a piece of content that answers a question anymore. It's about building a brand. And if you do that, then blog content has a place. But the reality is today, the business model that a lot of people use that worked for a long time isn't working anymore. And that business model was, I write a bunch of content, I'm going to get a bunch of traffic, I'll put some ads, some affiliate links on my website, it'll be totally passive, I'll just leave it alone and I'll make a bunch of money. And you're just not getting, in most cases, you're not getting the level of traffic that was needed for that to be a good business model. And so today, you just have to treat it like a real business. You have to have a purpose, you have to have value for people. And then that content serves it has a lot of value still. So blogging has a lot of value, but that business model is pretty rough. Most people are not making it work anymore.
So you can still be found in Google search if you're working on building your personal brand, building your domain authority, being somebody that people want to hear from, opinion you want. Is that what you're advising now for your students?
Yes. And really, like, the biggest mindset shift is your blog needs to be it needs to be a part of a business, right? You need to have something else going on. If what you're doing is trying to make money off of your information, it's not going to work very well anymore. Information is so cheap and easy to get. And honestly, in a lot of cases, when people just do a simple information search, what just a year and a half ago, people would have gone to Google and they would have clicked through to an article. Well, now what does Google do? Google gives you enough of an AI synopsis that for a lot of people, they're just never going to click through to the article. And that's for the people that are still going to Google. A lot of people and
directly in chat.
Yeah, I would say that there's a lot of things that I would have gone to the internet for before that now I just have the ChatGPT app and then I can have a conversation and I can get exactly the information I'm looking for. And as a content creator, that hurts because I know where they're getting all the information to train the AIs. They're stealing it from us. But it's just that much more helpful than actually reading an article that might tangentially touch on the topic. And honestly, bloggers, a lot of us shot ourselves in the foot because a lot of bloggers they created content focused on SEO and not focused on really helping the reader and giving them the information they need. And so oftentimes the articles just weren't that good, to be honest.
I always felt like there was kind of an arms race between Google and the bloggers who want the quick and easy solution. So that's loopholes. And then Google comes out with an update to close that loophole. So they find another loophole and it just keeps on getting harder and harder for people who are trying to do it in a legitimate way.
Yep, that's true. And that was the battle we fought all the time, right? Because we're trying to do this legitimately and then Google would catch on to other people's tricks. And so then we'd have to teach people a little modification. But that method of just creating good, helpful content, it weathered so many storms for so many years. It's just that in the end, it wasn't enough because in the age of AI and the proliferation, it's just now you have to build a reputation too. It can't just be content.
This episode is brought to you by Supercharge Your Website Traffic, infinite leads at your fingertips. Get it at Amazon today. So if people are searching for an answer, that's not where you want to be as a blogger. You don't want to be just answering individual questions and hoping to be found in search. You want to build something larger around yourself. Do you think that's good for traffic to write blog posts, to have your website kind of updated with blog posts regularly?
I think it makes a lot of sense still today to have your website, keep it up to date with blog posts. One thing that's changed is just 2-3 years ago, it was kind of a game where you could just keep scaling. You could make a website with 20 blog posts or 100 or 1,000. And it's like almost the more the better to a point. We did find, because we did some studies and we did find that the value of each additional blog post eventually just started decreasing. You'd cannibalize some of your own traffic because you'd have 2 blog posts that this one all ranked for a bunch of stuff, but now you have a more on the nose article about part of it. And So in the end, you'd reach a cap depending on where your niche was. But today, in most websites, I would say, like, instead of focusing on just creating tons of content, have really good but up-to-date content. Focus on making sure you keep your articles up to date all the time. And the reality is today with AI, there's almost no reason not to, because if you have the knowledge, right? And if you're doing the research, you mentioned in the beginning, we talked about doing our own independent research, our own studies, our own experiments, and all that kind of stuff. I can do that work, but then I can use AI to help me organize all of that and write it up so much faster and better than I was doing it myself. And then I can go through and edit it, and I can do it in less time, but have better output than before. So there's almost like, there's not as much of an excuse to not go and update your content. But at the same time, I wouldn't advocate for people to just say, hey, AI, write me an article about this topic. What do you think? I went from skeptic to, I actually really like using AI. I use it all the time. But
like you said before, I'm a writer and oh no, but
I know. But the thing is, and this is where I'm actually more okay with it, is I heard this on a podcast. I can't remember the name of the podcast now, but the guy's name is Jeremy Utley. He wrote a book called Idea Flow. It's all about ideas. He's at the Stanford D School. The guy just, the idea guy, he's awesome. He's got this podcast and he interviews people and they talk a lot about AI. But there was an episode where they talked about using AI as a thought partner and you still being the thought leader. That's the problem, is a lot of people just turned over all their thinking to AI, and now people are just going to get stupid. We're not going to exercise our brain muscles anymore or think for ourselves, and that will atrophy. But at the same time, and we're just going to get this situation where, like, they're being trained on content written by AIs, right? The AI needs us to input our human creativity, otherwise it has nothing to work with. So anyway, we can do a ton with AI and have it just help us so much by partnering with us. We can ask it questions, and then we can say, hey, you ask me 5 questions. Here's what I'm trying to get to. You ask me 5 questions, and then you respond to those questions. And then suddenly it can organize all your thoughts, and it's amazing if we use it the right way. So
I've been using it with a friend to do book marketing games, come up with 5 tasks I can do this week to market my book. And it's not writing it for me, but it's like ideas.
It can do a lot. It means I don't have to hire consultants and stuff to do all sorts of things that I might have before, because now I can.
I feel bad for those.
Me too. There's, I guess, any disruptive technology is gonna change the economic atmosphere and the jobs available, but this is a pretty big disruption.
But you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's no. So you have to find a way to live with it, work with it.
Absolutely.
So what do you think the future of income school looks like?
That's something that I've been working on a lot, actually, for a while, trying to work through that. One of the things that we've been doing for several years now that we're leaning into more is we're helping people with video content and YouTube. It's a space where people still want human content. When somebody reads an article, they don't really care who wrote it, as long as it gives them what they want, right? When people are looking for just information, that's it. And so we've been focused a lot on working on first improving our strategy with YouTube. So we've just been learning crazy, working with a lot of different people and just kind of figuring out where our gaps of knowledge were. And right now we're in the middle of updating our training content in Project 24 for YouTube to help people who want to get into that space. Just like we have in our Project 24 membership, we have a blogging system that's just like step by step. Here's how to start nothing. Here's how to use WordPress. And from there, everything. Here's how to pick the topics for your articles. Here's how to write them. Here's the different formats for articles that work really well. All of that stuff. Well, we've got that for YouTube, and we've had it for a while, but we're completely redoing it.
24 as being more of the YouTube side. Was I incorrect in that? I always saw it as Income School is the blogging, Project 24 is the video.
So not exactly. So Project 24 is just the membership, the training material and everything. So it's always funny though, because people that come for YouTube look at it and say, oh, there's mostly blogging stuff in here. And people that come for blogging are like, man, you guys only talk about YouTube now. So it should almost be 2 different things. But the thing is that there's a lot of overlap. There often reaches a point with YouTubers where it's like, you really should have like your own website and you should create some supplemental content that's written and build a brand here. That's your landing spot, is your website. And then for a lot of bloggers, you do a lot better if you built more of a brand. And that's a lot easier to do with other forms of media, both just regular social media, but podcasting, video content, like this is, it's kind of where it's at. And so
builds that trust so fast. And
it does so much faster.
Definitely. Oh, we're talking about overlap between them. And I was thinking that aspect of storytelling is really important in both of those spheres. And that's a big part of building a brand, I think.
It is. In fact, I think it's probably one of, if not the most important part of building a good brand. And in the blogging space, I think we didn't really emphasize that very well because we were very focused on the information aspect. Give people the information they came for.
Who you are at all.
Right. Nobody would follow a blog and nobody's going to remember you or your information or the article you wrote. They're not going to remember. Where was it that I learned about that? I don't remember. And they're just going to do another Google search in the future for the next thing they need to know. But good storytelling, that's what's memorable. And so we've been very focused. And that's the funny thing is, even on the YouTube side, I've been on YouTube for years, and most of what we've done on YouTube has been educational talking head content. And again, people follow it because it's really helping them. And there were some things that Jim and I did that were a little more memorable. We would do some silly skits at the beginning of videos and stuff, and just that kind of stuff to try to some sort of metaphor for what the video was about. But then it was a little more memorable and we were a little more personable. And that really helped us stand out. That plus the approach that we take, which was different, which is storytelling in a sense where it's like, everybody's saying this, we think they're wrong, right? It's intriguing, but it's just, I don't know, it was very light on the storytelling. And that's something that I've been really trying to get better at and just understand better how to be a really good storyteller. And honestly, I've been reading a lot of fiction books that I really like, and I've been paying way more attention to how they tell stories. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is doable. It's just, wow. It's an art, but it's also really a science, good storytelling. But it makes all the difference.
Well, I think you were already doing a better job than you give yourself credit for.
Well, thanks.
Very memorable to me because of that unique approach. And so anytime that I wanted to dig into making my blog better, I would be like, I'm going to Ricky. I remembered your name, and when I said, who is going to know what to do in a situation in 2025 with blogging, I know exactly who I want to talk to. So you did have a brand building over that time, and even if it's in small ways.
Well, I appreciate that. It's good to see that from the outside because again, I look at it, oh man, these videos are pretty boring. They're intended to be informative. When you're trying to give people information, it's almost like, I'm kind of a teacher at heart. And so I usually want to give people everything. I want to give them so much context so that they understand it all really well. And oftentimes I think it's too much, but also they lose interest, right? And so I found it's like, I need to teach people less at once, honestly, make my video have less in it and give less context, but focus on one thing and hammer that one thing in a few different ways and with a good story. And if you do that well, then they'll remember that one thing and they'll be better off than if I told them 10 things. And it's hard to do when you have that teacher mentality and you're just like, no, I just want to give it all. I want to give it all to you.
Yes. But you're right, that nugget in each video or each blog post to really to help them to internalize it. The way that I love educational content, I cannot get enough of learning. So maybe that's just me, but I do like the videos where it's focused on one topic because it's one super specific and not broad general. And because I can be doing it in the moment. I can say, I'll do this one thing and I'm going to follow along and I'm going to do it at the same time. I've got that down. Now I'll go to the next video to learn the next thing I want to learn. So I think the short nuggets is a good idea. So I think from what you're saying, my plan for my own blogging going forward is probably going to be to not try to write 20 posts, not try to churn out content, but to write 2 good articles a month and be going back to the articles that I've written before and updating them for each year to make sure that they're still accurate and to use language that reflects the current year. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think that's going to do a lot more for you than just writing a ton of content. And then as you do that, if you're going through and updating blog posts, looking for opportunities to internally link between articles that are closely related. I think we've got to, if this is going to work, again, we're dealing with a smaller funnel, right? Fewer people are coming to the articles in the first place. So if we can make sure that what we've done is create a really good resource for them in our website, right? Then when they come to this article and they're reading it and we say, here's what you should go do next, you should go read this next, it's going to do more to capture them and provide them more of what they want, what they're looking for, but also get them more kind of tied into your brand. And then you're going to get the more views out of it and everything. But we just have to recognize that we're just not dealing with the same numbers we used to. So we need to take advantage of what we can get and then try to treat it more like a real business. So don't just assume that we can make enough money off of ads to be really successful.
That's a great point and a good way of putting it, that the funnel is smaller, that the people, there's fewer people coming into the top of the funnel. So it used to be before you could get away with it if you had some leaks, and now you want to be focused really hard on plugging up the leaks and getting the most out of the people that you are getting to that top of funnel.
Exactly. On YouTube, we teach our members every video needs to have a clear call to action, right? And we'll actually include a few, but I only want one main one usually, right? But the other ones will usually be an invitation to engage with the video, right? Specifically inviting them to comment about something. So we might bring something up in a video and be like, and just invite them, what do you think about that? Or just ask a question that invites them to go participate in the comments. That's great. But then by the end of the video, there's one main call to action, and it's usually, this is the video you should go watch next. Based on what you watched today, here's what you should go do next. And again, with blogging, like, we would have internal links, but it was just kind of, oh, and if you're more interested in that, like, there's more about that here. But there wasn't like focus. And I think that's something that we could do better at, knowing that that funnel is smaller, is we can plug those leaks by steering the article around what should the reader go do? Now that they've read this article, what should they do? Maybe they should go purchase the materials they need to do the project, and you're going to give them links to go buy all those materials, and then you can make some money off of that. But whatever it is, think about what is it that they should do and try to steer them to it.
Yes, you're speaking my language now. I love funneling. Always be funneling. Always guide to the next thing, because I look at that as you invited someone to your website and then you dropped their hand and left them to wander alone and confused. It's a gift to guide them and hold their hand where the next thing is.
And the cool thing is it's not hard, right? It's just the way we craft the content. So in the metaphor, I invite somebody to my house and then I drop their hand because I invited 30 other people too. What am I supposed to do? Well, maybe instead of just dropping their hand, maybe you should give them an overview of what things there are to do here at your home. And it's like in the blog post, it's if we can give them, hold their hand and walk them through to a logical conclusion. I remember this was something I learned from Jim because he went to law school. And when he was in law school, one of the things they taught them was like, you can tell a jury or whoever, like you can tell them what they should think, right? And then they're going to make up their own mind. But if you can craft a story or craft something that leads them to draw that conclusion for themselves, it's way stronger, right? So if you just invite somebody at the end of a blog post, I'll go buy this product, maybe they've been convinced. But if you, through the blog post, guide them to the logical conclusion is, I should go make this purchase so I can do this thing, they feel like, yeah, that's what I feel like I should do.
Yeah.
You're holding their hand and you're guiding them, but just leading them to draw their own conclusion.
Yes. I love it. Well, I feel like I have a clear plan now, and we will certainly have the links to sign up for Project 24 in the description and show notes. Are there any other things that you think I've forgotten to ask that my audience should know?
Honestly, that's the big stuff. There are people today, just like there always are, who are looking for what's the next big technical SEO thing that I can do to try to trick the algorithm. And I think that's just, it was less effective for a long time, but today I think it's just basically dead. I don't know. So many people have said, oh, well, I learned some good stuff from you guys, but now I want to go look for the more advanced stuff. And they go looking for all that. And I'm just like, have fun. What's advanced though is just learning how to craft the excellent content and build a brand. That's way more advanced than whatever tricks people are coming up with today to try to beat Google, because Google's going to change it again tomorrow. And it's a losing race. It's like you said, it's that arms race. And Google, it's like if some little tiny island nation was, I'm going to get in an arms race against the United States. It's like, it's just huge and powerful, and they're updating things constantly. And, you know, so I don't even worry so much about what the latest things are in that space. Build a brand, create great content, and brand building and that storytelling. I love that you brought that up early on. That's what's, I think, going to do the most for us.
People often associate the word SEO, the idea of SEO, with those sneaky kind of tech people. And the people who are teaching the real foundational SEO that's going to get you where you need to go are the ones who are teaching you to do things that help people and make the internet better. So just do that.
And we'll all be happier because the internet will be a much better place.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak with me. I am really thrilled that I got a chance to pick your brain on this topic.
Yeah, you're welcome. Appreciate that you reached out.